Maqasidic Tafsir.
Where should I begin when I'm starting at the end? Pursuing the higher aim, learning the meaning of every page. Where should I begin when I'm starting at the end?
Assalamu alaikum. Sunnahfollowers presents a new class, the Maqasidic Tafsir, being taught and brought to you by Ustada Layla Nashiba. Please stay tuned, streaming on all major platforms, right here on channel Sunnahfollowers.
I was just looking at the email from the new Shahada here. The new Shahadas from my Reddit group. Yeah, I didn't realize that. I didn't plan that. They are saying how Thursdays, it seems like this is the Quran day here at Sunnahfollowers. I didn't think of that, you know. SubhanAllah, we had Sheikh Saud with his interpretation and implementation of the Quran class. And then you have me now with my Maqasidic Tafsir. And by the way, for those of you who have not yet purchased the book, there it is up on the screen. The Maqasidic Tafsir. This book is also written by Sheikh Karim Abu Zaid. May Allah bless him and forgive him of all his sins. I mean, I'm teaching all his books here now, aren't I? Yes. This book is for $19.99. Go to Amazon.com and get a copy of this book. And also, while you're there, make sure that for the new Shahadas who are the people that are new joining me, that you get a copy of the book entitled Get to Know Your Lord. Know Your Lord, because I'm teaching that too. Okay, so for this book, we just completed Sheikh Saud's class. And just based on how he teaches his class, what sciences does Sheikh Saud use in his as a mufassir? Y'all remember what the word mufassir means? What is mufassir? Anybody remember? What is the meaning of the Arabic word mufassir? Mufassir. Interpreter, exactly. We talked about how to interpret the Quran. There's certain sciences that they use. What science does Sheikh Saud use? And by the way, Sheikh Saud that's his specialty, the science of the Quran and the science of Hadith. He's on the AMJA committee, the American Muslim jurist. Yeah, Sheikh Saud is an American Muslim jurist. So is Dr. Jamali. Jamali is an American Muslim jurist too. The both of them have PhDs in the science of the Quran and the science of the Hadith. That's what they do. They're jurists. Exactly. Good job. You remembered the meaning of that word, Qadi. Exactly. If they were living in an Islamic country, exactly, Brother Edward, they would be Qadi, judges, jurists. Yeah, they would be jurists, judges if they were in a Muslim country. Exactly. Both of them, if they were in Egypt, they'd be jurists. Exactly. So what type of science does Sheikh Saud use? What do you guys see him using? There's different branches, different types of Quranic science that the mufassir or the interpreter uses, and you have to excuse me, guys. I ate some chocolate. Oh my God. And it's got me going, because I can't eat chocolate, but hey, what can I say? So what is it? What science do y'all see him incorporating? Let's hear from it. People in the Zoom room, is there anybody alive in Zoom?
Analytic. I know he used that one because he breaks it down when he's interpreting the different the words that's in there. So I know that one's for sure. Analytic.
Okay, he used the analytical approach. Mashallah, that is correct. That's one of the sciences that he uses. When he, like today, he gave y'all the interpretation of El-Masad, that surah of the Quran, those 5 verses. So what did he use? He used the analytical approach. And what else? Was it just the analytical approach he used? What else did he talk about? What else did he use?
And it's a thematic, but I don't know if it's a thematic or if he used that one or not, because if he did, he would have to have the subject and issue of that one.
Yeah.
I haven't heard him do that one.
Yeah, he didn't do thematic. Who do y'all know uses thematic? Which one of us uses here at this website uses the thematic approach to everything?
You and Dr. Jamal.
That's my specialty. Exactly. I'm always, when I do the hadith, when I do the Quran or anything, I always have a theme. When I'm teaching you guys, I always use the thematic approach to everything I do on this website. As far as teaching as a daya, I always have a theme. Okay, so he didn't use the thematic science. He used analytical, and what else? Jamila, based on the questions you were asking him, what other science did he use? Did y'all hear how he was answering Jamila's questions and how he answered Sister Amy's questions when they were asking about why did the prophet's uncle do this? Why did his uncle do that? What approach, what science was Sheikh Saud using to give them the answers and what those verses meant and why Allah said what he said? Come on, it's simple. It's something else that I use. What else? He used the analytical approach and, come on, other people. Good job, Edward. The historical. He used the biography of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Exactly. He sat there and ran down the family, who Abu Lahab's family was and how he was related to the prophet and all of this and why they turned against him and how before he was a prophet, they trusted him. That's history. That's the biography. So he used the historical approach. He used the biography of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He also used the analytical approach. So you guys witnessed all 3 of those things with Sheikh Saud. So that's good. And I was so proud to see how Brother Edward, that question you asked Sheikh Saud, man, you blew me away. MashaAllah, good job, Jamila. He also used the comparative approach. Exactly. He used the comparative approach. That's how he answered Jamila, with the comparative approach. So these are all the different sciences. And by the way, these same sciences go into the hadith too. Okay, these are the sciences that we use to give the explanation of the meaning to you guys. Okay, and you get to see it in action here. Jamali uses analytical. He uses thematic. He also uses linguistic. He used the language, the linguistics. And then he'll use other sciences too, like comparative. He'll throw in comparative. Okay. Dr. Asim, for his class, Dr. Asim is a stickler on linguistics because Dr. Asim also has a PhD in Quranic science, but also he has a PhD in the Fusha language. So Dr. Asim, when he's teaching his class on Saturdays, he's a stickler for words. He's giving us the meaning of those words. He's the one that's always on me, telling me, Sister Layla, it's pronounced Maqasid. Maqasid. What does it mean? To break it down, he's a stickler on vocabulary and grammar, the Arabic grammar, the Arabic that. So you guys get to see the different sciences of the Quran, you know, put to use in these classes. And we use the same sciences with the hadith. My thing is hadith. Okay. So the last time we met for this class, we talked about another science that is used by the mufassir or the interpreter, and that's connectivity. Who can remind us what does it mean to know the science of connectivity in order to reach the maqasid, the higher aim, the highest aim of understanding the meaning of what Allah is saying, so you in turn can apply it to yourself? You have to know the science of connectivity. What's the science of connectivity? Who can remember that?
How each of the surahs connect together. You might have one surah from Al-Fatiha, and then it's another surah from Al-Yam, and how whatever is in there connects together. So it's the how they connect. The
yes, how the words, the sentences, the themes connect. Who's a stickler here at this website on connectivity? Who uses connectivity more than anyone else here? Of all the teachers at Sunnahfollowers, who uses the science of connectivity the most? No, not for the Quran. Yeah, Dr. Jamali does. For the Quran, Dr. Jamali uses the science of connectivity more than anybody for the Quran. That's why he's able to tell you sisters his class on Saturdays. He started off with Surah Nisa, then he jumped to Baqarah, he jumped to Nur, he jumped to At-Tahrim. He's showing you connectivity of the Quran. Who else uses the science of connectivity at this website besides Jamali?
Dr. Asim?
Not really.
I know not Doctor, you and Morsi.
Me, exactly. Don't nobody use the science of connectivity more than I do. But I don't use it with the Quran, I use it with the hadiths. That's why I want y'all to see the same science. That's my thing, is hadith. Connect the science of connectivity. You have to be able to connect those hadiths. You can't just read one sentence. You read the hadith that says, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you knew what I knew, you'd laugh little. How many of you read that hadith? That is a hadith. But is that the whole hadith? Did he just, you read that and you think that means it's haram to laugh? No. You have to connect the dots, the science of connectivity. That's just one sentence of a 10-page sermon the Prophet gave. You got to know how to connect it. That hadith connects with which hadith? Which connects with what? Which connects? Okay, so y'all understand. So the science of connectivity is not just used in Quran, but it's also used in hadith science too. Jamali uses the science of connectivity more than anyone in Quran, with the Quran. I use it period, dot, in everything. That's my thing. My thing is my thing is analytical, thematic, and connectivity. Those are the three sciences that I use more than anything. Anybody that knows me will say Layla is trained to use the science of to analyze the words, the phrase, the meaning of the words. That's why I'm always telling y'all, get your Webster's dictionary. Look up the meaning. What does the words mean? And I always connect the verse to another one, to another hadith, another hadith to get the big picture. And it's based on a theme. I'll give you guys a theme. For example, your role as a woman, or beauty. The theme, the subject can be beauty. Did Allah say it's haram for women to be beautiful? Let's analyze the verse. Let's analyze the words. Let's look up and connect these hadiths to the other hadiths and the other verses of the Quran that go with it and all of that clarify it. Connectivity. I love the science of connectivity, guys. Okay, so we've learned about all of that. We've learned about the science of analysis, the science of history, the science of connectivity, linguistics, thematics, and comparative. Well, today for this chapter, and this is the first time I've ever taught this, so bear with me. For today's pages, we're just going to cover 2 pages of this book. Today, we're going to speak about the science of abrogation. Okay, we're going to speak about the science of abrogated verses of the Quran. And this is pages 95 through 97 of the book. So take your books out. And I'm trying to simplify it to try to make it as easy to understand as possible. Now, let's take a look at this, what Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid, how he starts us off with this. As he says, abrogation of verses or rulings in the Quran does not reflect a mistake. And this is the number one thing I want you guys to remember from today's lecture. Because there are some Muslim groups out there who call themselves Muslim groups, but they'll say that Allah made a mistake in the Quran, or Allah is contradicting himself in the Quran. They look at the verses of abrogation as being verses of contradiction and verses of mistake. And that's not the way we should view this. Remember, Allah is perfection. Allah never makes mistakes and Allah never forgets. So that's not the correct way to look at the verses of abrogation. Instead, the way we, the people of the Sunnah, and everybody claims to be of the Sunnah, but for those of us who are of the Sunnah, and we try to adapt the understanding of the companions, the correct view is that the verses, and I want y'all to remember this, the verses of abrogation are documentation that show the growth of the community of Muslims that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was sent to. Okay? It shows how those companions grew, how they grew in their faith, how they grew in their practice, how they grew in their relationship with Allah. That's what the verses of abrogation represent. They're not contradictions or mistakes. It shows that the companions grew in their relationship with Allah to the point that Allah took away some things before they even did them in certain, some rules before they even did them in certain cases. So to understand the development of the Muslim community and the stages of challenges that we contend with, it's essential for the interpreter to understand the rulings of Allah and the verses which may help to direct that development. That's what the verses of abrogation are. Did I make this simple? People in Zoom, did I simplify that?
Yes.
Okay, good. Because I don't want y'all to listen to these brothers on YouTube who are sitting around saying that Allah made them some mistakes. Okay, and all that other garbage. So abrogation also, not only does it show the growth of our companions and this nation in general, not only does it show our evolvement, because remember, we evolved. Some of us evolved from being Christian. Some of us evolved from being Jewish. Some of us evolved from being pagans. So not only does it show our evolvement as a nation, but also it reflects the mercy of Allah. How Allah is so merciful to us that he lifted the rulings to make the religion easier for us. Does everybody understand that? I'm trying to break this down in my words because I know the words that Sheikh Kareem used can be a little bit confusing because it's United Kingdom English and we are Americans. Americans haven't spoken English in centuries. Okay, so abrogation shows growth, and abrogation also shows the mercy of Allah because he lifted or did away with certain rules or regulations to make it easy for us. And when it comes to the abrogations, this is the second point. When it comes to the abrogations, the scholars of the ulama, I ain't talking about these brothers in America who call themselves scholars because they graduated from Harvard. I ain't talking about these Muslim brothers and sisters who got their PhDs online from some so-called Islam institute. I'm talking about the real scholars of the ulama that the rest of this ulama recognize as being people of knowledge. Well, they categorized the rulings which Allah abrogated in the Quran into 3 categories. So I want y'all to know this. This is the third point of this chapter. Not only are the verses of abrogations a reflection of our evolvement and growth as an ummah, but they're also a reflection of Allah's mercy, and the scholars of the ulama, the real scholars, categorize these into 3 different categories. Everybody got that? I'm taking it slow because it's the first time I've taught this to you guys. The first category, Allah abrogated rulings before the Muslims can carry out. So in other words, the first category of abrogations are those things that Allah did away with. Those things that Allah canceled out, those obligations, those rules, those commands that Allah took back before the Muslims even did them. An example of this, I really love this example that Sheikh Kareem Abu Zayd used. May Allah bless him. And Kareem, if you're listening to me, right on, bro. You my brother from another mother, because this was a beautiful example. I thought of another one, but I used yours. He gave an example of how, remember when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, remember when Allah commanded Prophet Abraham alayhi salam to sacrifice his son? That was a law. That was a command. Allah had the angel Jibreel call out to Abraham and tell him, you must sacrifice. You must prove to Allah that you love him more than even your son by sacrificing your son. That was a command. Allah abrogated it. That means he canceled it. When Abraham went through the motions, he went and got his son. He went and got the rock. He laid his son on the rock. When he rose the knife, that's when Allah said, stop. You don't have to do it. I'm changing that. I'm taking that away from you. That's an abrogation. Do you guys understand? Am I making this clear? Mina, am I breaking this down for them?
Yes, yes.
Everybody?
Yeah.
Because a lot of Muslims ask me about abrogated hadiths. The abrogated hadiths are the same, guys. These are commands that Allah may have told us to do, but then he canceled them out. There's a lot of hadiths in Sahih Muslim that are abrogated. For example, in the beginning of Islam, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, do not fast on Saturdays and do not fast on Sundays to show respect to the Jews and the Christians, because these are their days of Sabbath. But when the Jews and the Christians broke their agreement with the prophet abrogated that. He said, I used to tell you to not fast on Saturdays, to not fast on Sundays, but now I'm canceling that. Fast on Saturdays if you want, or Sundays. A lot of Muslims don't know that that hadith was abrogated. Even today, in 2024, how many of you have heard imams tell y'all that it's haram to fast on Saturday and Sunday? That's not true. That's an abrogated hadith. Well, just like we have an abrogated hadith, this is an example of how Allah will abrogate verses of the Quran too, like he did with Abraham. At first, he commanded Abraham to sacrifice his son. My allergies, I'm sorry, guys. And then he reneged on that command. All right. Where's the dalil? Of course, we always deal with dalil here. Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning, oh, you who have believed, when you wished. Here's another example, though. By the way, here's another one. Let me see. Excuse me. Another example. I forgot. I thought I was getting ready to read the verse of the Quran to you about Abraham. No. Another example of a command that was abrogated was the command for the believers to purify themselves with sincere actions before speaking to the prophet. Now, we talked about this in one of my hadith classes. In the beginning of Islam, as the companions were building up their faith, Allah sent down verses of the Quran telling them, do a good deed. Do a good deed before you ask the Prophet Muhammad to meet with you in private. Here's an example of it. Allah says, oh, you who believe, when you wish to privately speak with the Prophet, present before your consultation a charity, because that's better for you. But if you don't find the means, then indeed Allah is forgiving. Okay, this was canceled out. This is an example of another abrogation of the Quran. Y'all understand? And I gave you an example of a hadith, the hadith about not fasting on Saturdays and Sundays. So abrogations are not mistakes. Abrogations are cancellations. Commands that Allah made and then canceled out. That's the first type. The second category of abrogations are the abrogation of specific rulings that Allah mandated upon previous nations. But he took us away from that. You guys can think of a lot of that. For example, the food. What's the hadith? The Christians and Jews. The Jews were forbidden to eat shellfish. The Jews were forbidden. They couldn't eat shrimp. They couldn't eat lobster. They couldn't eat any scavengers of the sea. That was Allah's way of punishing them for their disobedience. But Allah abrogated that for us. He said lawful for us is everything from the sea, even its dead. So that's an example. And that's the one I came up with. And then Sheikh Kareem Abu Zayd gave us another example. Another example of this is the collecting of blood money as a result of capital punishment. Okay? Wait a minute, hold on. I got the wrong mic. Mouse. There it is. At Qisas. We talked about Qisas. What's Qisas? An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Qisas is prescribed for you in the case of murder, the free for the free. The rule for the children of Israel was Qisas and not blood money. Then Allah revealed blood money to them, and he revealed this ruling to this community as an alleviation of the ruling that applied to the children of Israel. So that's another example. In the case of accidental homicide, say, for example, you got into a car accident and you hit another car and that person died. That wasn't intentional. The family can demand blood money, which is you pay them for the loss of that person. Okay? Rather than capital punishment. So these are examples of how Allah abrogated us of things of laws that he had for the people that came before us. Okay? Remember, Allah tells us in the Quran that he does this as a mercy for us. As a mercy for us. And I can think of another one. Remember the hadith that we just went over? You know, everything I do is going to be hadith. You know, remember the hadith. Whereas Allah sent down the verse of the Quran. There's a verse in the Quran, another abrogated verse, where Allah says that he would hold you accountable. He would hold us accountable for our bad thoughts. When Allah sent that verse down, the companions felt that that was very hard. They said, "Oh, Prophet of Allah, how can it's going to be hard to control what thoughts come into our mind. We pray to Allah. We beg Allah to not hold us accountable for our thoughts." Because that's what Allah did for the Jews. He held the Jews. The Jews were held accountable, guys, for their bad thoughts. So Allah abrogated that too. He said, from now on, I've heard your complaints. I've heard your prayers. I will not hold you accountable for the bad thoughts you have. That's another verse of abrogation. That was another way of this second category happening, where Allah abrogated a ruling that he gave to the people that came before us. The Jews were held accountable for their bad thoughts, but not us. Allah abrogated that. So that's another example. And also, you guys know the direction of the Qibla. Remember the Christians and Jews, they all prayed facing the direction of Jerusalem. For the first 17 months of Islam, so did we. But then Allah abrogated that. Allah changed the direction of the Qibla from Jerusalem to Mecca for us. So that's another example of this second abrogation. These are specific commands or specific rules that Allah gave to the people that came before us, but he abrogated us from them. We can eat everything in the sea. The Jews can't. We don't have to pray facing Jerusalem. The Jews and Christians do. We can do blood money. The Jews couldn't. Okay, so these are examples of the second type. And then this is the third type of abrogation. The third type of abrogation of rulings were those which Allah commanded due to a specific condition, which stopped to be a casual condition. In other words, the initial ruling was lifted. And why was it lifted? I'm going to put this in plain, simple terms. Let me move this up so y'all can see, because this is very bad wording. This is not good English used here. These were rulings that Allah put in effect, and we didn't even have to carry them out. He canceled them before we even carried them out. That's basically, oh, excuse me, wrong mic, mouse. For example, listen to what Allah says in the interpretation of the meaning. "O you who have believed, upon you is responsibility for yourselves. Those who have gone astray will not harm you when you have been guided. To Allah is your return altogether. Then to He will inform you of what you used to do. This verse of the Quran was sent down in the beginning of Islam, and it was sent down before the Muslims had the strength to implement change in their society. Remember, the Muslims were oppressed. They were not allowed to practice their religion openly and freely. So they could not enjoin the good. They could not forbid the evil. Okay? They couldn't do anything society-wise. But then, oh, wait a minute. I'm hitting the wrong buttons here. I'm sorry, guys. It's so hard working 10 screens. Wait a minute. I stopped it. Resume. Okay. Okay, a minute. Hold on. Which one were we on? This one? Yeah, this one. Okay. I'm sorry. And why is that popped up saying Layla's password? I tell y'all, this is just crazy. Oh, I just passed it? Okay, I'm sorry. There it is. Don't y'all like my PowerPoint? There it is. This verse was revealed early before the Muslims had the strength and ability to implement change in their society. But when the Muslims grew and became stronger, that's when they were required to enjoin the good and forbid the evil and engage in battle. Okay? Remember when the Prophet ﷺ was in Mecca, Allah did not send the command to fight yet. They had to sit there and endure the oppression. They had to sit there and endure all the evil without doing anything to try to change it, to try to stop it. But when they migrated to Medina, that's when, and they became stronger, that's when Allah sent down a command to fight and do that. Okay. Remember, the Prophet ﷺ said, when you see oppression being obeyed and desires being followed, and people preferring the life of this world over the hereafter, and everybody admiring their own opinion, then you take care of yourself. Like the days we're in right now. Enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. We can do but so much. You look around you and see the Muslims engaging in so much oppression. The Muslims engaging in so much avarice that all we can do is make dua. I can't do nothing to stop it. We can't stop the war in Gaza. I don't care how you boycott. I don't care how you protest. This is the qadr of Allah, and that ain't the way Muslims fight anyway. We don't fight by boycotting. We don't fight by protesting. That's the way the Kafirs fight, okay? That's why this war is here. We fight through our supplications. We fight through our piety, okay? And that's why the Prophet said, if you live to see calamities like this happening, look at yourself. Change the condition of yourself. So this is the third type of abrogation. These are those rules and commands which Allah commanded due to a specific condition, which then stopped. But if it comes back, let me give y'all another example of this third type, because I know y'all not going to understand this one. When I was putting this PowerPoint together, like I said, it's the first time I taught this. When I grew up, it was just easy to memorize, Layla, which of the hadiths are abrogated, which of the verses of the Quran are abrogated, photographic memory, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it's in my mind. I'll never forget. With this third type, let me give an example. Slavery. Oh, yeah. Slavery doesn't exist today, because it ceased. But all the rules that Allah put in effect, they have not been abrogated. They will still have to be abided when it comes back. The only time that we can do slavery is if we had a caliph and did the war against Islam. When those 80 United Nations declare war against all Muslim countries, that's when the war against Islam will happen. And then we'll be fighting. And then slavery and right-hand possessions and all that stuff will come back in effect. And when it comes back in effect, we're going to have to abide by those initial laws. Okay, well, those laws were not abrogated, but there are other laws that did cease due to the specific condition that the Muslims were in. That's the best way I can explain this third one to you guys. Okay? And I hope you guys understand it. Okay, let me continue on now. I'm sorry. Now, a lot of people ask about abrogation, the abrogation of the Quran by the Quran. How many of you have heard of that? Abrogation of the Quran by the Quran. And most of the interpreters agree that this does take place. But it's not abrogation. Instead, it's not abrogation of a ruling. Let me see if I can explain. Oh, hit the wrong button again. Let me see if I can explain this to you guys. This is not an abrogation of a command of a law. Instead, it's a change in the expression of the ruling in a verse. And this is important for the interpreter to understand, because often verses of the Quran do have specific or general meanings, and misinterpreting these meanings can lead to irresponsible leadership, like what we have today. So in this case, 3 classes of abrogation of Quran by Quran have been put into a place. And these are the 3 classes. Number 1, deferral or delay of the revelation. When something is initially revealed in less defined terms, whose clarification was delayed until the need rose. Okay? Then the second class are injunctions that have been interrupted by another injunction, or something that initially applied generally, but was later specified. And then the third ruling is a ruling with wording that is general, but its ruling is only applicable to a specific group. So those are the 3 classes of abrogation of the Quran by the Quran. And when we meet for the next class, we're going to talk about these 3.